Hey guys, so welcome to my first movie review of the year. So if you're a fan of horror movies like me, you probably know that January tends to get a really bad reputation as being like the dumping grounds of where they put their bad movies. And I'm definitely not saying that this is a bad movie, but it wasn't everything that I hoped it would be either. So I was really lucky I got to see this at a screening in the IMAX theatre in Sydney with Lee Winnall in attendance, and that was really cool to hear him give a sort of an interview before the movie about his inspiration for this. He said he drew on movies like The Fly for inspiration, and you can definitely see that in this movie with the transformation and everything. I think Lee Winnall is an incredibly talented director. I think his interpretation of The Invisible Man was so good. I love that movie. He was also involved in Dead Silence, a really underrated horror movie that I love about the creepy dummies. So I feel like we're seeing a bit of a resurgence lately of those classic Universal type monster movies. There's been Nosferatu, we have Guillermo del Toro's interpretation of Frankenstein coming out soon. We've got another The Mummy movie in the works, which I'm really excited about. And even though we're not officially getting the Dark Universe, I feel like they're still going forward with a lot of those types of movies. So this is a Blumhouse movie, and we all know Blumhouse can be notoriously hit and miss. And while I definitely did enjoy this movie, it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. I'll go more into that later. So this plot is one that we've seen before, a family struggling to connect, go take a vacation. So in this case, his father just passed away, and he has this like cabin in the woods type house, which is basically my dream house, despite all the horror movies I've seen about cabins in the woods. You know, minus the werewolves and lack of Wi-Fi, this is basically my dream house. I love the setting for this movie. I love horror movies set in the woods. And I feel like it just adds something. It really has an ambiance to it when it's set in the woods. And it was clever because this movie is basically set primarily in one location. And I find that that can get really boring sometimes if it's not done well. But I was never bored in this movie. It was mainly a cast with the three family members. There's obviously some others, but it was mainly about them. And it definitely kept my focus with that limited setting and cast. So the husband getting bit and his transformation takes course over the period of one night. And this, I will say, it leans a little more into body horror than I would like, but you know, you have to expect that, I guess, in a werewolf movie. But still, there were certain bits that I just am not a fan of when nails break off. I can't stand nails breaking. So yeah, just a word of warning to expect that, though I think you see that in the trailer anyway. And there's a bit with his arm that I won't spoil it for you, but let's just say my audience definitely reacted to that. If you're squeamish, just go in prepared. So this movie definitely had a focus on that family dynamic and generational trauma. It felt like it was trying to draw a parallel between this transformation and it being like a disease in the way it affects you. And I felt like it was a really fresh take in that we see this from the wolf's POV at certain times. You can see as his senses start to change how he's viewing the world, and I thought that was really interesting. I think the score was really well done. It definitely added to that sense of dread and tension. I really like that they used practical effects. I'm a huge believer in practical effects over CGI whenever possible. But from here on in, let's start to talk a bit about the negatives. So yes, I do like the use of practical effects, but in this case, I actually think that the use of CGI could have improved the look of the werewolf. I wasn't impressed by him. Look, it just felt like it was a man with a bit of a weird face and fur on his body. And that was basically it. And I get that they're going for a more grounded in reality approach than, say, like the Wolfman movie that came out in 2010, which I think, looking back on it, is like Victor Frankenstein. They're both sort of those universal classic monster movie tales set in the Victorian era. And I think they're both definitely underrated, especially Victor Frankenstein. I just watched that on Disney Plus the other night. It's so good. Like, I can't remember it being that good, but yeah, the Wolfman movie I feel like isn't as good, but it's still got the design of the wolf better than here. I feel like there should be more of that fantastical approach, but I get that they were trying to be grounded in reality, but still, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. So I found this to be not scary in my personal opinion, but what scares me might not scare you, and vice versa. It definitely felt like it was more of a family drama, a tragedy than horror in parts. It was a sad movie with a sad ending. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that. Like, we can all guess where this movie's going. There were well done moments with the tension of the wolf creeping around their house, and I would have liked to see more of those moments of tension because I know that Lee Winnell does those really well, like in The Invisible Man. So I didn't connect emotionally with the family, and that was such a huge part of the dynamic of this movie. It's centered on this family and their structure, and I just feel like a lot of it was due to the lack of chemistry between the married couple and Julia Garner. I don't want to be unfair to her because I haven't really seen her in a lot of things. I've only seen her in that Inventing Anna thing on Netflix, but I just have never really been that impressed by her based on what I've seen her in. But I still wanted to go into this, giving her a chance. But she just brought a very lackluster performance. There wasn't enough emotion considering the circumstances. And I get that they were trying to have her, I think, play what I think she is in real life, more of a reserved, introverted person. But still, like, when your husband's about to eat you and your daughter, you show a bit more emotion. It was also a bit of an odd match, her and her husband. I heard several people saying that they looked more like a father and daughter than a married couple. And I think that the build up to the transformation lacked a bit. I feel like it would have benefited from us spending a little bit more time before we go straight into the transformation. Maybe going a bit more into the mythology, because that's another thing I did like, actually, the fresh take on the werewolf mythology of the mountain men. You know, going into, I can't say it without spoilers, but other aspects of this movie a little bit more before getting bitten. I feel like that would have made us maybe connect a bit more emotionally with the family as well. So sometimes late embargoes can be a bad sign, and I think it's the case with this movie. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie, but I am going to say it's one that I don't think I'll rewatch, and I won't remember it too much in the future. It's mediocre. It could have been a lot better. It had potential. I would say it's a 7 out of 10 for me personally. So let me know down below what's your favourite werewolf movie, and if you've seen this movie, what you thought of it. Please consider liking or subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.